People who've been on the dark web, what's the scariest thing you found? Story 1. A long time ago, there was a guy online that was trying to buy large quantities of bedbugs. When questioned why, he basically said that he wanted to try and breed them to be resistant to normal methods of killing, while simultaneously breeding them with a weakness that only he knew. This way, he could release them in people's houses and then force them to pay him to get rid of them, since no one else would be able to kill them. Literally the basis for the original Pied Piper story. It definitely wouldn't work though. There are plenty of ways of killing bedbugs that prey on the basic psychological weakness of insects themselves, such as desiccants. Not only would you probably be unable to breed any meaningful level of resistance to common chemical treatments into the population, you'd also be unable to prevent them from being treated with other methods that are universally effective against insects. I mean, yeah, obviously, that's what I was going to say. Story 2. A friend of mine claims he was snooping around where he didn't belong, black market forums and hacking forums, when someone private messaged him basically saying, "I've looked into you because I see you in here a lot, and I know you're not here to buy or use the services because you're just a kid. I don't mind, but others will, and you haven't protected yourself well enough to be here. Get off if you know what's good for you." He thinks it was either a moderator of the forum who helped connect buyer to seller and knew what some people were actually capable of, or a cop who was trying to use the forum to catch someone. Either way, scared him off and scared me from never going on. This would have me disconnecting my computer, throwing it in the bin, and going to sleep with the lights on. Sure, that's creepy as hell, but at least they were looking out for your friend. Story 3. When I visited, I mostly visited the hacking cybersecurity part. It was interesting to see how people go about hacking various things, and really educational. Yes, there are people buying and selling 0 days etc, but it's mostly social engineering. Anyway, the scariest was a hacker advertising a service where he was willing to upload CP onto someone's computer and report him to the police as a form of taking someone out. Well, actually the scariest part was discovering that there were at least 2 people in the chat room that I was in discussing about kernel security who had used that service. I decided to stick to more regular forums afterwards. If it's so easy for someone to put CP on your computer, why isn't it considered by judges? If someone drops off a corpse on someone's front yard, the owner of the house isn't automatically found guilty. Where's the difference? That's an interesting point. Listeners, tell me what you think in the comments. Story 4. I helped out with some of the 4chan raids to help shut down some of those CP sites. But man, you can't unsee that. That's some messed up crap. Glad it's gone now. Bit of backstory. One of my closest friends lost his 12-year-old sister to a drunk driver. Me and my friend watched her get hit. I don't curse often, but if you drink and drive, f*** you. With that said, on with the story. A while ago, just before the 4chan raid started up, I had recently gotten better than most people with computers. It wasn't that impressive, I was still a script kiddie, but was beginning to spread my own wings and write my own programs. One day, while I dived deeper than normal, someone on a sketchy forum posted a link. I thought, what the hell, I'm VM'd, it'll be fine. And I was right. And wrong. I just remember looking into that girl's eyes and seeing a face that reminded me more of the face of my friend's dead sister than of a young girl. She was no more than 10 tops. I shut my computer off and just cried. The anxiety I had, long past forgotten, crept back into my daily life. I went from being able to actively engage with young kids around that age to just seeing that girl's face every time I saw someone in their age range. Since the death of my friend's sister, a voice always asked me, why were you not there to stop her? And when I heard that same voice ask the question, why aren't you doing anything? I snapped. I stopped volunteering, started skipping class, stopped attending certain extracurricular activities, and spent 8 to 10 hours a day learning anything and everything I could about coding, hacking, and most importantly, DDoSing. I went to work to get that website shut down. I don't think I actually did much. After every attempt to shut it down, I'd force myself to follow that link. And it always worked. That face greeted me time and time again. This cycle repeated itself for the most destructive month of my life. My physical and mental health deteriorated significantly in this time period. My grades stooped to their lowest ever. Then, just as I began to completely shut down, the one person who knew my troubles showed me a familiar website I used to browse frequently. Good old 4chan. I got in contact with some people who were far more skilled than I ever was with hacking and the like. At this point, the raids were starting up in full force. I showed the website and my DDoSing program to a fellow who will remain nameless, and he made a major improvement to my program. Then, after only a couple of days, he'd done what I'd worked for so long to do. For the first time, instead of being greeted with my nightmares, I was greeted with a white screen with the words "Tor failed to connect" plastered onto it. To this day, if you launch my computer, the only shortcut will have the words "Project Charlotte" plastered beneath it. I didn't save you, I didn't save her, but goddammit I did my best. And maybe my best was just enough to slightly lower the burden on that young girl's shoulders. It's very sad what happened to OP's friend's sister, and it feels wrong to pull something positive out of the experience, but I'm glad they helped take down some of those diabolical websites. Story 5. I was a casual orderer of the dark web for a while and got pretty big into it and started buying slightly bulky packages of drugs. If you knew the markets for a while, then you would know one called Alphabay, which was the best of the best. The Amazon of drugs and fraud would be its best description. However, it went down mysteriously one day and everyone just assumed the owners scammed everyone for their Bitcoin. Which was partially true, but in the background it was actually seized by the DEA. Everyone flocked to a new site called Hansa, which had some sketchy design features, but it was the next best alternative. Turns out, the Dutch police took over the site and, with cooperation of multiple governments, ran a drug distribution onion site with over $1 million of transactions for around a month. They were gathering information from unsuspecting users, including me, who bought with faulty security practices. Now, this is where I started freaking out. Imagine trafficking drugs through the mail, and the Attorney General at the time, Jeff Simmons, makes a speech on live television that he was going to crack down and explicitly explains how f***ed everyone on Hansa was, because they've been gathering data for over a month. And in a big dick energy move, closes the site and puts up a banner in its place saying everyone who purchased will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. I was shitting myself for a month, as many arrests did occur, but luckily, I guess, I wasn't important enough and nothing happened to me. Here in the Netherlands, they also use that information to pay a home visit to at least all the underage drug purchasers. I can't remember if they also visited others, but I remember distinctly they at least went to people who were underage. And they gave them a visit to remove the illusion that purchasing that stuff on the dark web is safe and make sure they are properly informed about drugs. That's such a Dutch thing to do. I hope the police turned up on bicycles. Story 6. I managed to successfully purchase drugs on the darknet. I followed directions from Google on how to access it using Tor and how to encrypt Bitcoin addresses. The material arrived from outside the US. I was stoked, excited that I'd actually completed it. I tested my drugs and all was great until I realised I did not use a VPN. I was shitting it for about a month. One night, I got my things ready to have personal sexy time. I connected my laptop to my big screen via HDMI, then left my laptop open facing me. I turned on my Bluetooth headphones and had some trouble connecting to the laptop. After tinkering with it, I got the sound working. I was in the middle of when the scene on screen froze. Although the picture stopped moving, I was still hearing sounds. I heard loud creaks like boots walking over wooden floorboards. The more I started paying attention to the sound, the more I began to hear clearer. I looked directly toward the laptop and hear, "I think he can hear us, he's looking at the camera." My heart dropped and I flung towards the laptop to close it. I unplugged it and all and tossed it aside. Nothing came of it to this day, but that f***ed with me for a while. After a certain Black Mirror episode, I don't know how anyone can still use their laptop for that. Story 7. So this may seem like a nebulous answer, but the real scary shit are the portals. By that, I mean little doors hidden from everyone except the people who know what they are looking for. Seemingly innocuous sites that have clues hidden in the page source. or seemingly innocent image galleries containing images that have audio clues or other things embedded in the code that have to be extracted through specific means. When I was in college, the guy who got me into computers used to show me the ones that he'd cracked. One of them led to a PDF that was a copy of the original Anarchist's Cookbook, 1st edition, before it was heavily edited and stripped down. It had shit in there including detailed chemical breakdowns of military-grade explosives, way deeper than just your typical "this is how you build a weapon" stuff. There were other, more sinister portals too. There was one that just led to a chat room he showed me that was some kind of ultra-occult LARPing shit. Except they would share ASCII images of super f***ed up shit, like snuff-level violence, that you could only see if you copy-pasted the code into a word editor and scaled it in a certain way. Lots of bizarre hacker wizardry, and some of it is creepy as f***. Thank you for making it all the way to the end. The reality is, you really won't find many scary things on the dark web unless you actively look for it. I hope you enjoyed the episode, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.